Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Debbie Schwartz, founder of Road to College and the Paying for College 101 Facebook group. And today's session is about merit scholarships, what they are, how you find them. I'd love to know who's joining us today. If you want to put into chat where you're watching from, what year in high school your student is, if you've done any research and searching for colleges, that'd be great to know. And while you answer that or share that information, let me just tell you a tiny bit about how the session is run. This is actually officially a Zoom meeting. It is not a Zoom webinar. I only say that for a few reasons. One is if you want to put your video on, it's just nice to see people's faces. I'm always encouraging that. And that's kind of one of the values of a meeting versus a webinar. We know who's out there watching. The second is that you've come in muted. If you can keep yourself muted, if you know, that would be preferable. But if you truly have a question, I am perfectly okay. If you want to unmute yourself, ask the question. Of course, you can always put your questions in chat. Either way is fine. And my last housekeeping is this is recorded and the recording will be sent tomorrow or maybe later today in an email. Depends how quickly we can get it together. So that's all my housekeeping. I apologize a little bit. It looks like I'm not zooming from my normal location, that there looks like I'm a little bit of a what's the word, freezing up a tiny bit, but I think you can still hear me, and maybe with the slides it won't make a difference. Okay, so let's just see who is here. A lot of juniors, makes complete sense. This is perfect timing if you're a family with a junior. And I think I did see a sophomore. That's nice to see. And I thought I saw somebody who had a senior, but okay, glad that you guys are all here. I am going to share slides. And again, feel free to put questions in the chat. I will try and look at them as I go through. And I'm also going to try and finish this in the hour since it's kind of midday. So let me go to the slides. Let's see. I don't think you're, hold on. I don't think that's shared correctly. Okay, I think I know. I have to do one more thing. Hold on one second. Sorry about this, guys. Okay, let me try it this way. Okay, so if a few people, can you just give me thumbs up, making sure that I am sharing the right screen, because I have a lot of screens open. So one person, just make sure that, tell me that you can see the title, which says Understanding Merit Scholarships and How to Build a Balanced List. Can anybody? Great, thank you, thank you. Okay, good. Okay, so let's get started. Wait, and I got the chat going, good. Okay, so today we are going to talk about what merit scholarships are. I'm also going to talk about all these other acronyms you might have heard about, SAI, COA, and they're actually important to understand, particularly relative to if you're searching for merit scholarships. We'll talk about what does it mean to build a balanced college list. And I'll also show you a tool that we have that makes it easier to do a lot of the research that I'm going to talk about today. And honestly, it came about because I did my own research and found it difficult or time consuming. I'm also from the world of investments and personal finance. And so I also, at the time, found it strange that there wasn't enough information for parents about how to pay for college. And then, quite honestly, how to pay for college is very directly related to your student's college list. The one thing I'll emphasize over and over again is that the thing that is in everybody's control, you as a parent particularly, is your student's college list. The college choice is the biggest driver of what it's going to cost you. It just kind of makes sense, like when you go buy a house, when you go look for a car, the type of house, the type of car you look for, and how much you have to spend are the driving factors about how much that purchase is going to cost you in the end. So it's the same thing here. Your choice, your student's choices, and you, because this is a big financial decision, so parents should and are involved, are going to be the biggest drivers. So for me, as somebody who is in the world of personal finance and helping people with, kind of their overall investments, kind of seeing that people were struggling with paying for college, I wanted to help. And then as I got deeper, I realized that, of course, we can talk about loans and we can talk about how you can save for college, and that's all important. But the biggest driver is the colleges that you research and the colleges your student applies to. And so that's kind of how I got into this particular niche of college admissions. But anyhow, so that's the reason why I focus so much on researching colleges and what your student's college list is all about. Okay, so how do parents pay for college? Again, why are we talking about merit scholarships? Because it is the biggest contribution to helping families lower the cost of college. There's really only 3 buckets that families go to when paying for college. It is what you've saved. So that's, from your savings. It's potentially what you can contribute from your, daily or weekly, monthly income. Like, can you cut back on something, and cash flow more money to put towards college. And then the other, potentially very nice resource to have, which I don't have on the slide, or if there are grandparents involved that can also contribute. But so that's all money that's coming from the family. The next bucket is free money, right? And that's what we're focusing on today. Free money is going to come from a few different sources. It's mainly going to come from the government in terms of grants. And unfortunately, we've kind of are seeing that the government's cutting back on a lot of what they're offering these days. It could come from private scholarships, and that's I'm not against private scholarships. I just don't see it as the best place to put a family's efforts in terms of the return initially. So I always want people to work on the thing that's going to give them the biggest return. Private scholarships just take a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. Yes, some students definitely find funds through private scholarships. We always hear about the outliers, the student who, was able to win $500,000 or, pay for their whole college 4 years. It happens. I'm not denying it, but the percentage of students that happens for is really small. And so the effort that goes into private scholarships is an effort that I think should happen after you put more time and resources towards the bigger source of free money, which is going to be, again, what college your student chooses to apply to and then that chooses to enroll in, because the college is going to be the greatest source of free money, either in the form of merit scholarships or in need-based aid if your family has that type of need and you can find a college that is willing to support need-based aid. So that's, again, why we focus so much on colleges, research, and the college list. And then finally, if you don't have enough money from the family and you're even if you've gotten money from the college, there still might be a gap. And at that point, you have to decide how you're going to cover the gap. Most people cover it with borrowing. And the 2 major sources of where you can borrow money is the government or private lenders. Again, recently in July, the bill that was passed by Congress had a lot of changes to student loans. I'm not going to go into complete detail about it, but I'll talk about it briefly. And basically, starting in July 2026, and so for all the families who are on this call, the amount of money that a parent can borrow from the government has been significantly capped as you compare it in the past program. So going forward, as a parent, you're only going to be able to borrow $20,000 a year for the first 3 years of college. And then in that 4th year of college, you're only going to be able to borrow $5,000. So it's a total of $65,000 per student for both parents, which is a significant difference than in the past. And that's all under what the loan called the Parent Plus loan. In the past, parents were allowed or offered money to be able to borrow whatever the difference was of what they could afford to pay for college and the cost of tuition. So if it ended up you could only afford to pay $20,000 a year, but your child was going to a $60,000 school, you could borrow $40,000 a year to cover the costs. That obviously had good and bad implications, but at least that resource was there, and that's what a lot of families relied on. And going forward, that amount of money is not going to be available anymore. So it actually makes the college research, the college list building process even more important. Okay, so I kind of already gave my spiel about why the college list is so important. It's going to drive your family's, final cost of college, because whatever college is on that list and your student applies to, that's the college that either they will be accepted to, and obviously those are the colleges that are going to offer them money. We have a saying that you can't get money from a college that you didn't apply to. So there's a lot of times that students and families kind of in that March, April timeframe are kind of have remorse, and they say, oh my gosh, we should have applied to college XYZ, because now I see that their college is really giving money and my student could have gotten more money from that college. It saddens me when people have that remorse, because if you attended one of these sessions, if you did your research early, you would know all that information. You would know the colleges that could offer your student money. And so you wouldn't have missed that opportunity. And then lastly, obviously the number of colleges on your students list, the types of essays they require, just obviously that college list also determines how much work your student's going to have to do. That's something, if you're a family with a junior, a family with a sophomore, you would probably narrow down and consider a little bit more in the summer before they are applying. But at some point, sometimes, and I don't blame them, students just get burnt out, and particularly if certain colleges have a lot of essays that they want them to write, a student just is like, well, I just can't do anymore. So you have to consider, how much time and effort your student can put towards this as well. So what are merit scholarships, also called merit aid, also called tuition discounts? Not going to lie, some colleges kind of use it as a discount and give money to almost every student who applies. Other colleges use their money much more selectively. So, and that's something that I'm going to show you how you can see, and from the data, which schools kind of how they use this tool. It is a marketing tool. It's a business tool that the colleges use to potentially, attract stronger students as compared to their profile of a student, and to also hopefully get students to commit faster and earlier to their college, because the earlier that a college knows in the admission cycle how many students plan on attending, just the better they are in kind of forecasting their yield, which is really the number of students who decide to attend the college out of the number of students that the college has offered an acceptance to. So the other important thing to know about merit aid or merit scholarships, it is not dependent on your student's financial situation or your family's financial situation. It is much more based on your students' academics. A large number of merit scholarships are based on academics, or it could be based on another type of talent that they have, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But it is not based on whether or not your family might have a financial need. And sometimes it feels a little confusing because some schools ask families, particularly families who are going to apply for merit scholarships, to still fill out the federal aid form called FAFSA. And so people are confused, but why do I need to fill out FAFSA if I'm not going to get financial aid and I'm only applying to merit? This doesn't happen at every school. It's a school by school decision about whether they want you to fill out FAFSA. And from what I've heard from admissions and financial aid professionals, the reason why they ask that is those schools want to truly make sure that you're not going to be eligible for money from the federal government, or at least they want to know if you're going to be eligible for federal funds, and then they might factor that into how much merit they offer the student. So they're just kind of covering themselves to know, is this family going to get money from a different source in addition to merit scholarships? And that's, again, usually the only reason. They're not using the FAFSA to determine whether or not your student, if they're going to actually offer merit scholarships or not. That's going to usually be based on other criteria. The other actually good thing about merit scholarships is they are usually awarded in this time frame of students applying to college, so that they start in that incoming year, and they are renewable, meaning that if your student is awarded a merit scholarship, whatever the amount is, they should get it freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. The only caveat is a lot of schools also have like some sort of criteria to renew the scholarship, and that criteria is usually GPA related. Sometimes it could be really simple, or an easy bar. It could be just 3.0, which most students should be able to accomplish. Sometimes it is 3.5, which is a little trickier, but you won't know that information until your student is actually sent the award information. And at that point, we actually have other seminars and webinars that discuss how you evaluate the merit scholarship. But at that point, you just want to be careful to know that detail about what is the requirement, the GPA requirement, and will my student feel comfortable enough to be able to get whatever the GPA that they're asking for. Because the worst situation is if a family chooses a school and that school was affordable, or more or closer to what they could pay because of the merit scholarship, and then your student loses that merit scholarship while they're at school, therefore they're losing that money, and all of a sudden this school becomes more expensive. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. Okay. Let me just see before I go into this section what questions there are. So someone's asking, if we don't have savings for payment, but we will be able to pay it in the future from income by installments, is it affecting decision of college to accept us compared to families that they have 529 and savings and some liquid money? So it could affect whether how a college views you. So basically I'm going to actually broaden the question and basically say, does a college look at your financial capability in terms of how much you can potentially pay for college, and do they use that in their decisioning factor or kind of admission factor? And the reality is that colleges do, and it's something called colleges that are need aware versus colleges that are need blind. So need blind colleges truly separate out any sort of review of your family's financials from the decision about whether or not they want to accept you. To be perfectly frank, there's very few colleges that operate like that these days. There's always been on the small amount, because those colleges tend to be wealthier. They have larger endowments. They just have more money to offer students. And so for that reason, they are willing and able to say, I'm going to, make any financial information blind to the people who are also making the admissions decision, because we have enough money and we're able and willing to separate those decisions. Right now, I don't know how many, there's probably less than 10 schools that really operate like that. They tend to also be very selective and schools and harder to get into. So it's both, they are very competitive. They are like the Ivy League schools and some other like near Ivy schools that might operate like that. Although they could be very generous, they're very hard to get into. So, and then we go to what we call the need blind schools, and they are, not always, but sometimes they are considering what a family's need is or lack of need in the admission decision. And so it's actually kind of on the both spectrums. Obviously, schools would prefer, right, to have as many families as possible, who have the capacity to pay full sticker price, that's what they call it, without any discounting. This is just like any other business. Like, if I'm a business owner, wouldn't I want to sell something at the highest price possible? I want to, sell those products to the people who are willing to pay full price first, and then if I can't sell enough of those, then I start discounting. And so it's kind of similar to college. Colleges want to find as many full pay families as they can. And then after that, they're more likely to want to give merit money to a family that maybe can't afford full price or maybe isn't willing to pay full price, but they'd rather discount to a family that still has stronger financials, as opposed to a family that might have need-based aid, because they're concerned and they're looking at not just who are we accepting for freshman year, but who can we have assurance is going to be able to get through 4 years of paying for college. And that's for the college's benefit and for the student and family's benefit. They want to make sure that students persist. And honestly, one of the biggest reasons that students drop out is financial. So they want to make sure that they can enroll as many students as possible who are going to finish the 4 years, again, for their benefit, but also for the students' benefit. The worst situation, or one of the worst situations, is if a student does drop out mid years in college, and they never complete the college degree. So that's not a good situation. Financially, those students usually tend to be the weakest, I mean, in the long term in life, because they haven't gotten a degree from college, but they've also paid money towards it, and they might have actually even incurred debt. So they have debt for something that they never were able to really finish. So sorry, this was a big explanation, but so the bottom line is, yes, sometimes colleges will kind of look at how much you can afford college, and that could be a factor in their decision. Okay, let me continue. So in terms of merit scholarships, there's 3 types, and these are not official categories. These are just kind of ways that we've come to group them over the years to make it easier to explain the different merit scholarships. There are types of merit scholarships, which I call automatic, and I'll give more detail. Competitive, pretty simple what the name means. Your student's going to have to, take some extra work to apply for those scholarships. And then there are the talent ones, which I kind of mentioned earlier, and they are going to be, based on if your student's applying to maybe a conservatory or even a school that just, might value other types of talents like music or dancing or art, and they might be offering special scholarships for those skills. And those types of merit scholarships, the reason I kind of categorize them differently, tend to also have different deadlines. It could be a deadline to send in for a portfolio, could be a deadline to schedule an audition. So there could be multiple deadlines in those cases, and you and your student want to be very aware about what those deadlines are. Okay, so let me go back to the other categories and show you some examples. So this is just one example from a school called Miami University of Ohio. So actually, before I dig into this example, to go back to automatic merit scholarships and why we named it that, they are automatic. There could be automatic in different ways. Some automatic scholarships kind of go back to what I mentioned earlier, where a school is giving everybody who applies some amount of money. It's kind of like, people rightly call it or name it like the discount that the store Kohl's uses, where they price something at a certain amount and then everything seems to always have a discount. So that is the case with some colleges. They have a sticker price because they think that having that sticker price out there, maybe conveys a certain type of value, but then they're really giving everybody who applies like some sort of discount to the tuition. So that's one kind of automatic merit scholarship that might happen. A second is that a reason why we call it automatic is that your student doesn't have to do anything extra in order to be reviewed or for that merit scholarships. It means that every application that is sent to that college is going to automatically be reviewed in terms of whether the student will be getting merit scholarships or not. So that's the other way or reason why we call it automatic. So going to this example, no particular reason why I chose Miami University. I have been actually tracking it over the past 5 years. But I should say there is one reason why I choose it, and it is because they have clear information on their website, which is right important and easy to deal with. We should all love and encourage the colleges that share transparent information on their websites. Miami University has it in an easy to understand chart. It is easy to find on their website. It is not hidden. They try and make as much information about their merit scholarship program as clear as possible in the language on the website so you're not confused. We have to give any and every college who does that credit for doing it, because we would like all colleges to do it. And that is one of the issues or problems, I will say, in the college admissions, college search process, is that colleges aren't always transparent about what's going on. And so we're digging, to look for the information to uncover the clues. But with a college like Miami University and other colleges who do that, they're kind of putting it all out there and saying, this is how we operate. So the example on this slide is just over the years, their grid that clearly identifies the merit scholarship dollar amounts they offer and to who they offer those merit scholarships. And in the bottom right-hand corner, that was starting in fall of 21. I actually had to take off because I just didn't have enough room. I used to have fall of 2020 on here, and the only reason I like to show that is because that was before the pandemic. And when most schools were not test optional, and they truly were asking for a GPA and a test score as the criteria to be evaluated for merit scholarships. We've gone the other extreme, again, for good and for not so good, where majority of colleges are test optional. So these grids now are only relying much on GPA. You can see, though, starting in fall of 2021, the GPA ranges, the top one was 3.95, and they shifted that. So in 2024, I kind of do a big jump. It went to 4.3 as the top range, and you can see all these range shifted higher, and it stayed at 4.3, but the money has also shifted. So let's just go to last fall of 2025. You can see that for the top level, the student with a 4.3 or more, the merit scholarship for Ohio resident, was starting at $4,000. For a non-resident, it was starting at $15,000. And it probably went up from there. But actually, I was kind of intrigued how much they changed it this year. So now in fall of 2026, again, they still have the same GPA ranges, but now they're starting at 8,000. They've doubled. At least for Ohio residents. And then for non-residents, they're starting at 20,000. So I think that this is actually reflective of that the admissions process is getting a little bit more competitive on the college side. One of the things you might have heard is something called the enrollment cliff. So the number of high school students peaked, the number of high school students going to college peaked in 2025. And then for the next, I think 15 years, it declines. So does it mean that since your student is a class of 2026, that all of a sudden things are going to be much easier to get into? Not necessarily, because when they talk about the cliff, it's not truly kind of like falling off. It's just going on a gentle decline over the next 15 years. So the number of high school students who are graduating in 2026 going on to college, yes, is less than 2025. I actually don't know the exact number. I should find out, but it's not by a huge percentage drop. So this class now, 2026, even 2027, maybe for some schools you might see it ease up a little bit, but you're not going to see major changes in admission rates, because the fact is, there's another factor actually that has gone on in college admissions, and that students just apply to a lot more colleges these days than they have in the past. So that increases what I call the velocity in the system, and it's just much harder for colleges to really predict their yield, and they're just inundated with applications. But anyhow, my gut is that is one reason why Miami University has started to increase their merit scholarships, is they want to become even more attractive to strong students. So anyhow, just kind of an interesting thing to notice. It's actually you won't necessarily know that they made the change, because all you're doing now is going directly to their website and seeing this. You can't actually see the previous charts. So you might not know this at other schools, but it's just interesting to see this here at Miami University. So somebody's asking, just wondering, do they not list out the requirements for unweighted GPA? So that's another reason why I choose Miami University as the example. They tend to be a little bit more unusual in that they are looking at the student's weighted GPA. And again, kudos to Miami that they also make it clear what type of GPA that they are looking at. You can see I think that's their, here, the footnote number 1. It says Miami uses a weighted GPA of a student's transcript. So obviously it's pretty obvious if they're listing 4.3 that they're using weighted for their calculations. Honestly, the majority of colleges use the unweighted GPA in their admissions process and in their merit scholarship process. So, but it's important to make sure that your student knows, and what, particularly if a college has this type of chart, very public and clear on their website, you want to make sure that, and you're using kind of the different bands to predict or estimate where your student might fall and what type of merit scholarship money they're going to receive. You want to make sure that your students using the same calculated GPA that the college is going to look at to figure out what GPA band that they might be in. So will class of 2028 see different discounts with the enrollment cliff? It's a great question. Wish I had my little, the crystal ball. I can make an argument both ways, but I do see that I think in general, merit scholarships will increase over the next few years. There's a lot of factors going on with college admissions. I'm sure you might see things in the news. Besides the enrollment decline, there's going to be a decline in international students for lots of things that are going on. And certain colleges really did rely on a good it could be 10, it could have actually, in some schools, it could have been 20% of students were international. And the international students, usually are full pay. So those were students where colleges knew that they were going to get the full cost of attendance. They also knew that they weren't going to be spending merit scholarship money and financial aid with those students. So so that type of decline is going to hurt hurt colleges financially. And it might be a little counterintuitive, but like if a college is hurting financially, why would they then offer more merit scholarships? And it's because, again, going back to the concept, colleges would rather have more families that are either full pay or slightly below full pay. So it will cost the college less if they offer a merit scholarship to a family that essentially, has stronger financial means, as opposed to offering need-based money to a family that is just lower income. Because and again, it goes back to what I said earlier, the risk of the lower income family not being able to continue for 4 years is greater than the financially stronger family, even though the college has to discount it. So I don't know if that's too much information, but to the question about will we see better discounts for class of 2028, I think we will. So we will continue watching that. Okay. So the next example is about competitive merit scholarships. And the reason why I go in a little bit more detail about this is because, these are the schools who aren't giving every student a merit scholarship. They aren't even they may not even be looking at every student to be seeing if they are eligible for merit scholarship. These colleges are kind of waiting for the student, most likely, or waiting for the student to take the step to say, hey, I'm interested in your college, so I'm sending in an application, and I'm also interested that potentially for these merit scholarships. So in this case, students might have to fill out like an additional application. They might actually have to do additional essays, and this is kind of where the work starts to build up. But the most important thing as a student, as a family, is to just understand, are the colleges that your student is applying to, are these going to be automatic? Does your student have to do anything extra in the process to make sure that they are going to be reviewed and eligible for a merit scholarship? And the example I show here, and this is just an example, but it happens at lots of different colleges, happens to be University of Southern California. This is the example on the left. And University of Southern California, I think 2 years ago, they were a school that only had a regular decision deadline. And they actually, when they only had regular decision, they, for students who are interested in merit scholarships, they had a different deadline for those students. So the regular decision deadline was December 1st, but if you wanted the college to review you for merit scholarships and look at whatever essays that they ask you to write, then you had to have your application in by November 1st. So that was and things have changed a little bit at USC, but it's kind of still similar. What's changed is that in addition to a regular decision deadline, they also now have early action deadline. So their early action deadline is November 1st, and what they tell students, on their website is that if you're interested in being eligible and reviewed for merit scholarships, you need to make sure that you apply early action. So only students in early action are going to receive merit scholarship. You can still apply to them regular decision, but you're not going to be eligible for merit scholarships. A lot of colleges do this. So they're using the merit scholarship a little bit as a tool to both kind of smooth out when students apply, because they would rather have more students apply early. And if you apply early, they can obviously give you a decision earlier. And they're also hoping that the student and the family might make an earlier decision, particularly if you've been awarded a merit scholarship to attend the college. So deadlines in the whole process of admissions becomes very important, but particularly as it relates to merit scholarships, you want to make sure that you and your student know what the deadlines are, because they can absolutely be very different than what the application for the general admission is. So somebody's asking, can I define early action? Absolutely. Thanks for asking. So there's different types of admission phases, or deadlines. So the regular decision is usually around January 1st. USC is just tends to be a little earlier, but and then or usually January 1st, January 15th, or when the majority of colleges have their quote regular decision. And so what that means is your student sends in the application and they're part of the regular admission phase or pool. And then colleges usually commit to communicating back to the student, usually in the March, definitely by the April 1st timeframe. Early admission, there's two types of early admission. There is something called early decision and there's something called early action. So both of those early decisions have earlier deadlines. And so they're going to be earlier than the January 1st. The biggest deadline is November 1st, which we're coming up close to. And then a number of colleges also have a November 15th deadline. And so let's go with early decision. Early decision is the stricter commitment that a student is making if they're applying early. And you can only apply to one school early decision because if your student is accepted early decision, they I don't want to say have to, but there's a strong commitment that they will attend that college. So there's been a lot written about this, about whether like the early decision contract is actually binding. It's not actually legally binding. It's kind of like ethically and morally binding. But usually if a student is applying early decision, then they are basically saying, this school is really important to me. It's my number one choice. If you, the college, accept me, I'm going to go. So it's actually a great tool for both the student and the college. The advantage for the college is they know, the minute that they accept that student that they're going to be attending. And so this whole concept of yield becomes much easier because every student that they accept early decision, they know is absolutely going to enroll, as opposed to a student who applies regular decision might get accepted to several different schools, so that college doesn't know for sure whether or not the student's going to enroll. Okay, so that's early decision. Early action is a variation of that. In that the student is applying early, so there's an earlier deadline. The college is also committing to respond and tell them whether or not they're accepted earlier. But the difference is there is no commitment that just because the student is accepted, they have to enroll. So it's a variation of regular decision, but it's just earlier in the process. And again, the commitment to the student is that the college will tell them earlier. These early decision notifications usually go out around December 15th to December 18th, something around there. Early action decisions also start to kind of come out. They can come at any time from like early December to usually sometimes mid-January. So the college is, again, telling you earlier that they're going to accept you, but for early action, you don't have the commitment that you have to attend. Okay, let's see. Do most colleges list out the merit scholarship application deadline? Yes, if they have a different deadline for merit scholarships versus admissions, their application deadline, they will list it. It will be on the website. Oh, I meant early action deadline in order to get, if colleges have different deadlines for all these different things, whether it's early action, whether it's for merit scholarships, they're pretty good. They will list it on their websites. And, and there might be other search sites that have deadlines. And actually, and I'll show you, we have deadlines. And you can use other search sites to maybe narrow your searching. But at the end of the day, I really encourage everybody to confirm all the deadline information for the specific college website. That is the source of truth. Because sometimes they do change, they go in and they make tweaks. And so sometimes, a deadline that might have been on the website in August, they might have made a change in September. So, so always go to the college website. Okay. I'm gonna run through this really quickly because we're actually running out of time. Okay, so this is a section I call Know Your Numbers. It's just the reason why it's important to know these numbers is as you're doing a college search, you really need to understand a few different things. You want to understand, well, what's my budget? Again, I'm going to relate this to any type of other big purchase shopping. You know, you don't go out and look for a house without knowing what you can afford in a mortgage. You don't go out in you know, to buy a car without what you know that you can either afford to pay for the car in full or pay for a monthly payment. So it's the same thing with college. You need to know what your family budget is, what you're going to be able to afford or willing to pay, you know, yearly, and you want to make sure that you have a plan and how you're going to pay for all this for 4 years. And then some of these other numbers are going to help you figure out, is your family going to fall in the bucket of being seen as a family that has financial need? Or if you don't have financial need, then you're a family that needs to look for colleges that offer merit scholarships. And the reason why you need to know this distinction is because not every college offers good financial need, and not every college offers merit scholarships. So you might be a family that is never going to get financial need, so you always want to look for a college that offers merit scholarships. And then your student might, if you didn't pay attention, your student might be applying to colleges that don't offer merit scholarships. So you need to kind of match those two things up. You need to match up who your family is, like what bucket do they fall in, and then what type of money do the colleges offer. That's the type of research you can and should be doing now. Okay, so this is a little bit of a complicated slide. I'm gonna, I guess, go through it quickly. So somebody's asking, do you mind how they calculate SAI? Is it based on your family income? This is a great question. This is actually kind of complicated. I'm sorry, I'm running out of time. What I'm going to say is please look for in your emails at the beginning of November, where you do a whole session just on SAI, which is called the Student Aid Index. So please come to that. We will go into detail about how the Student Aid Index is calculated, and then we will go into more detail about this chart, but I don't have enough time to do it today. So this chart is really a quick view of what your family's SAI might be when you fill out the FAFSA. And the biggest categories that impact the FAFSA are the biggest is the parent's adjusted gross income. So, you know, that's one category. And honestly, that basically that contributes has the biggest, you know, impact to what your SAI is going to be. And then an important other category that has an impact, but less of an impact, are your assets. If for the FAFSA, it's non-retirement assets. So this is just a quick chart so that give you an idea of where you fall. So if you look at this, you can see that you know, families that make about 150,000 and actually have up to 300,000 in non-retirement assets, this might fall in this yellow category. And yellow means that you have the potential of getting need-based aid. And I'm going to put the caveat, if your student applies to a college that offers need-based aid, but at least you would kind of be in that bucket. And then you can see as the income goes up, your eligibility for need-based aid goes down. And if you look where the red starts, it's really for families that make 300,000 or more and also have like assets of 300,000 or more in non-retirement. The likelihood of you getting need-based aid is practically zero. And if you want to reduce your cost of college, the only and best way to do it is to apply to a school that offers merit scholarships. So that's kind of the purpose of this chart, is just to kind of give you those ranges so you have a quick idea of where your family might fall. I will say one piece of advice that we got over the summer. We did a webinar with the woman who is the head of, it's called NAFSA, which is the National Association of Financial Student Service Providers, or it's basically it's an organization that all financial student advisors at colleges belong to. And her advice was, anybody with any age students, so again, particularly for the families here with students of juniors, students of sophomores in high school, just go to the government website. It's called studentaid.gov, and actually fill out a real FAFSA. It will pull your tax information that it needs to. You're going to have to give it permission, but nobody will see this information because your student isn't applying to college. And then you will have the most accurate estimate. It's not even an estimate, the most accurate view of what your actual SAI is by filling out like the FAFSA today. And I thought that was just great advice. And she reassured everybody that no college gets that information because first of all, your student isn't applying to college. And when they do apply to college, you have to put the college code on the FAFSA for the colleges that you want this information to be sent to. So, and quite honestly, it will be a great exercise so that you understand how the form operates. And then when your student does go to apply to college that year, you're going to have to go in and redo it because it's going to have to pull a different set of tax information. So anyhow, I think that that's just great advice to get your most accurate SAI. Okay, so the way that your SAI is used is really to figure out whether or not you're going to have a family, whether or not at a particular school you're going to be considered a family with need or a family without need. So the example on the left is at a school where all the costs of attendance are higher than your SAI. So in that case, you're always going to have need because the cost of that college is going to be more than what your SAI is. So, so that's good to know. At those schools, you would fall into need-based aid. Again, then you have to check, does that school offer need-based aid? And then the example on the right is where your SAI is higher than the cost of attendance. And in that case, the college is going to say, you don't really have financial need. You, in theory, can afford to pay for this. Of course, there's arguments about what the word afford really means because of how the SAI is calculated. But so the only way for you to reduce the cost of college in those situations is to find the colleges that can offer your student merit scholarships. Okay, so I'm going to, at this point, get out of this and now show you our tool, which helps to find those colleges. Hopefully I've given you enough information to understand now that we get to the tool. Okay, let me stop sharing for a second and pull up another tab. Okay, and then we share this. Hold on. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this, if again, somebody can give me a thumbs up. This is our site called Insights. So make sure that you're seeing the correct web page. And so I'm just going to show you how this works. It's on, I see desktop, seeing your desktop. Okay, thanks. Let's see, maybe that's not the right thing. Okay, got it. Okay, this should be the right thing. So this is for anybody who wants to go check it out. You can get a free account. It's called insights.roadtocollege.com. And it's just, we have a lot more data than a lot of other search sites because you need the data to do this type of research. And we offer you just more extensive ways that you can filter the data because we think it's important that families do this type of research. I'm just gonna log in because I have an automatic, I have an account already set up and just quickly show you how this works. This is a dashboard of different sections. Depending on what year of high school you enter when you create the account, we will have different articles up here to kind of show you the information you should be learning, or should have learned about, depending on your students, year in that they're graduating high school. So these is just articles to make sure that you have the background information that you should have. Then there's a section called lists where you're going to do a lot of research and you can create as many lists as you want. So there's a free account and there's a paid version. In the free account, you don't have as many features. You can create a list, but you can't create unlimited lists. In the paid account, you can. In the paid account, you also get access to see more information and you get more filtering and sorting capabilities. So there's a section where you're going to create your lists, you're going to discover. At the point where your student applies, there's a section basically called your app tracker, and that just helps, to make sure that your student's on track, for filling out the deadlines, and it's just a kind of an easier view of what colleges they're applying to. I'll just show you an example. So if your student was applying to whatever colleges, you would identify it as I'm applying. You kind of change the status. Those colleges then show up in the app tracker, and then we just have a quick summary of those colleges, what the fee cost is, what the deadline, what the admissions deadline is, what the financial aid deadline is. I noticed somebody said we just did a webinar last night on the CSS profile. And one of the things we emphasize is the financial aid deadline is another deadline to track, and that is also can be different than the application deadline, or sometimes it can be the same. And particularly for the students who are coming up on this November 1st deadline for admissions, there's a few colleges that also have the financial aid deadline the same day as the application deadline for admissions. And so it's just more information to fill out, particularly if a school is asking for the CSS profile, which is an additional financial aid application. That is complicated, takes time. As we emphasized last night, it can take up to 3 days to even process. So anyhow, this whole section is just to make sure that you are aware of the deadlines for the colleges your student is applying to. And any requirements. So we actually list, does the school have a personal essay that you need to fill out? Is there supplemental essays? And then you can also add in if there's other requirements that you found out about that we don't know. Okay, then let's go back. And then finally, this is, I think, we've been doing this for like 5 years. This section is pretty interesting. When you get to the point that your student actually has an offer, you can then share that offer. You are updating the platform to say, okay, these are the schools my student applied to. These are the schools that we heard from and they either got accepted or didn't get accepted. And then if they got accepted, these are the details of what the college offered to them. And then once you share that information, you get to see other students who've also shared that information at the same college. So here, I'll show you that quickly. And so this particular section is only for parents of high school seniors. So I have an example here where my student got accepted to Northeastern. This is my information or my student's information. If I click, oops, no, I didn't want to do that, sorry. If I click on crowdsourced offers, I can now see crowdsourced offers from other students anonymously, and kind of all their profile information. So I can see what state they were from. We actually asked what SAI range that the family had, because that gives you an idea, like, is my family similar financially to this family as well? Because if we were in a similar SAI range, what the GPA of the student is and what their SAT and ACT were. So we only list their test scores if the student applied to that college with those test scores. So the students that have blank mean that they applied test optional. And then what phase did they apply? Early decision, regular decision, and then they're entering in and sharing if they got money or not. So this is a great tool. If you have a family, if you are a student, a high school senior, and you get offers, this part of the platform is completely free. It's all about, if you share your information, then you can see information from other people as well. Okay, so let me go back because I didn't even haven't gone to the the search section, which is Discover. So under Discover, basically this is a database that we've put together of almost 4,000 colleges. Of course, you know, a lot of those colleges, majority of families aren't as interested in. I'd say it's probably about 1,200 colleges of the 4,000 colleges that people are most interested in. We have a lot of data here. I know that can feel overwhelming. You can view it in the table format, which personally I think is the most helpful if we're going to look at data. You can have a thumbnail view of it, which might be easier if you're looking at something on mobile. But we don't share all the data in that view. It's just harder. But sometimes if you just want to do a quick look, you know, you might use your phone. But I personally recommend that this type of research is better on your laptop. Even having your child sit next to you, it's great, you know, learning process. And the category of information that we have is, you know, school profile, which basically tells you how many undergraduates there are, what percent of the undergraduates are men versus women, what the ethnic breakdown is, what, you know, state that the college is, what the majors are that the college has. So, you know, that's the general school profile information. Academics, here, let's, is all, you know, the breakdown of the GPAs, the different SAT and ACT scores that the colleges report. We're actually most interested in what the 75th percentile, ACT or SAT. That's the students who are the strongest at that college. So those are the students that have the highest, you know, SAT or ACT score. Those are also the students that are most likely to get merit scholarships. Then we have admissions, the section on admissions, which breaks out the different admission rates. We talked today about early action, early decision. So when colleges report like this overall admit rate, here, let's look at one here. Let's find an early decision. When colleges kind of overall admit rate is made up of both students who applied early decisions, early action, and regular, right? So let's just like take an example here. I mean, these are more, elite colleges, so the numbers are kind of low, but you can even see, again, I know that this is, you know, Ivy League schools, but look at Brown University at the bottom. Their overall admit rate is 6%. These are all low numbers, not denying it, but their early decision rate is 15%. So by just looking at the 6%, you're masking what the other admit rates are that got blended together to create the overall rate. So we break that out for you. So here's Bennington College, a slightly different school. Their overall admit rate is 45%. It's kind of interesting to look at these numbers because you can tell the strategy a little bit of what the college is doing. So Bennington College, not as selective as a school. There are students who apply early decision there, but I don't think that's where they're kind of putting a lot of emphasis. So they probably don't even accept that many students early decision. They are accepting a lot of students early action because they know that that's kind of really more where their bread and butter is, that the student who applies early action, they have a better chance of eventually, you know, getting them to enroll at the end of or when that student is making a decision. So this is just all helpful information to look at. Let me show you one other. I've been talking a little bit about the yield, right? The admit yield. So how many students decide to actually come? But actually another important information column here is the percent of the class that is filled early decision. So here, let's take, again, I understand that this is a very competitive school, but Johns Hopkins. So their overall admit rate is 7%. They are the early decision, meaning the students who have applied early are getting in at a slightly higher rate because it tends to be a smaller group of students who apply there. They tend to also be probably higher qualified because they've made this early decision. So that is 12%. But then look, Johns Hopkins is filling their class they're filling their overall class with 60% of the students who apply early decision. That's huge. So what that's saying is that 40% of the class is now going to be filled with a regular decision, and regular decision has a lot more students who are applying. So it just is that much harder to get in if you're going to apply to certain schools regular decision versus early decision. I am not saying that should be the deciding factor about why your student might apply early decision to a certain school, but you just do need to put it, you need to understand it, because let's go Columbia, and there's other schools like Bowdoin where they take, if Columbia is taking 64% of the class early decision, there's just that many fewer spots regular decision. So, I think students and families just need to understand this dynamic about what happens with the schools who do accept a lot of the applicants early decision. They're filling up their class early. That's basically it. And there's fewer spots for the students who are applying later in the admissions process. Okay, so that's the admission section. Let's get to the financial section of the data that we have. So these 4 or 5 or 6 columns are the important ones. So we've talked a lot about, does a college offer need-based aid? These are the 2 fields that will tell you if the college offers need-based aid. The percent of need met, and then what their average need amount is that they offer. So again, these more selective schools tend to be very generous. So these schools are saying, Cornell, all of these schools on the list here, that if a family has a financial need, and that's going to be determined by your SAI, we will cover 100% of that financial need. So if your student is accepted, it's a big if at these schools, and whatever financial need they have, these schools will give 100% of money to cover that financial need. That's very generous. That's another reason why these schools tend to be so competitive. But I mean, there are less competitive schools that are still very generous with need-based aid. And by doing some of the filtering, you can find those schools much easier in this type of a database. So that's for need. And then for merit, so we also calculated, okay, so what percentage of the student body actually are students from families who don't have financial need? So these schools, remember I said it tends to be one or the other. Schools tend to be generous with need-based aid, and the schools that are generous with need-based aid, honestly, aren't generous or don't even give merit scholarships. And you're seeing that here, that these colleges, let me scroll, let's see. Oh yeah, okay, I'm at the top. So these schools that are more generous with need-based aid, they have the freshmen without need that are receiving aid, like in this case, Columbia, there are no freshmen receiving merit because they don't give merit. And then here's the merit amount. You see, that's why it's blank. So these schools that give 100% need are usually giving close to 0 merit. But, so that's why you want to find those schools that can offer merit scholarships. You can find it in this database here by, sorting, just if you want to sort this column. But the more important way to find it is to use the filters. So every column that we have in this table, you can filter by. Well, on this original pop-up, it just shows you the fields that we thought most people use most often. But a little bit further down, it says add a filter. And you can pick any of the columns to use to filter. But to answer that question about, one simple way, if you wanted to, is you can say, okay, show me all the colleges that offer an average merit award, greater than, here, I'll do equal to or greater than, $5,000. But if I just wanted to see kind of like, which colleges in this database are offering merit. And it did it. And so you can see the result down here. It says there's 993 colleges that offer more than $5,000 in merit. But that doesn't mean that my student is going to be eligible for that merit, because the way the way to think about which students are going to be most eligible is that the colleges are using the money to attract a stronger student. And that stronger student is usually defined by a student that has an SAT or ACT score that's in the top quartile of the type of the profile of a student who comes. And that top quartile, we describe it as the top 25%, or if you're in the 75th percentile, those are the students who are strongest relative to the profile of the student who attends that particular college. I know that this part is a little tricky in that the easiest way to search in the database is to use SAT and ACT scores. And I know that a lot of students are applying test optional, or they haven't taken the test. And the reason why it's easiest to filter using that criteria is because majority of colleges share that information about SATs and ACT. It's easy for them to gather. It's easy for them for themselves to use on a comparative basis. And so when you look at the colleges and what information they've shared, I would say that 90% of them have filled out all of their ACT and SAT information. If you look at GPA, they just haven't shared in the same amount of quantity. So I would say 50%, or maybe even a little less, of colleges share their GPA information. So it's definitely frustrating, because how can we search, for a student's GPA if they're not sharing it? And the answer I've gotten from admissions people is that GPAs are not standardized, right? So high schools calculate them in lots of different ways. And it's just much more work for colleges to calculate or recalculate GPAs for every student who applies. And so that's why they don't share that information, because they've just decided not to do it. So they are usually, recalculating GPAs for the students that they're most serious about evaluating, but they don't actually always recalculate GPAs for every student who applies. So going back to, if your student, even if they're going to apply test optional, use their test score if they took it for the purpose of searching. If they didn't take a test, then there are some tables. I would just honestly Google them, where they're conversion tables. You can say, how do I convert a GPA to an SAT score? And they're usually from the test prep companies that have done a lot of work with lots of students, and they can see usually most students that have this GPA tend to perform this way on a test score. So at least you can kind of get a test or an SAT and ACT score to use for searching purposes. But my last little comment is I would honestly encourage every student to still take at least one SAT, ACT, even if they choose and ultimately apply test optional. The world of test optional is also changing these days. We are seeing more colleges, swing a little bit back towards test required. And particularly if you have a sophomore and a junior, I can't tell you next year who is going to still be test optional or not. So to be on the safe side, I think it's good that your student takes the test. They kind of have it in their back pocket if they need to have it for a school that might change their policy. We saw schools this summer change their policy from test optional to test required. It's a little harsh, because students who might have been planning on applying there and didn't take the test, or didn't like their test score because they thought they were going to apply test optional, all of a sudden either they have to rush to take a test, or they can't apply to that school anymore. So I think for the purpose of just making sure that you have that as an option, it's good that your student at least take a test score once, or take the test once. Okay, so to go back to the filtering, I've used the filter about which colleges offer merit. I kind of put it at $5,000 and above. And then I'm going to also look at, now I'm going to go to the filter for 75th percentile and say which schools have a 75th percentile between, if my student got like a 1350, right? I might want to look at the schools where 1300 to maybe 1400 are the 75th percentile. So now I'm going to filter schools that have that 75th percentile of 1300 to 1400, and they offer more than $5,000 in merit. Okay, and so we are going to go from the original filter, which was 993 colleges. Now we are down to 179 colleges. All of a sudden, we've gone from here to here, okay? And by just, filtering the database, not having to kind of pull up individual common data sets from colleges to do this type of search. And you might not actually even know which colleges to look at. So, and then I can now sort on this column that says average merit given to freshmen who don't have need. And let's see which of these colleges offer the most. So, there's like Kalamazoo College, Beloit College, Bennington's up there, Goucher College. These are all colleges. If my student has that SAT score, or maybe has a GPA that's equivalent to that SAT score, and I want them to look at colleges with merit. Now I at least narrowed it down. It doesn't mean that your student should apply to every one of these colleges, but it's helped to narrow the universe down to something that's more manageable. And now you can start to dig in. You could now start saying, okay, which of these colleges are in the location that's most interesting to my student, or which of these colleges have the majors that my student's most interested in, which of these colleges have early action, but now it's much easier to do this research. And you also know that you're at least looking at colleges that can offer your student money, where you can reduce the cost of attendance. Then we have a column here that's called the net cost after merit scholarships or merit award. And again, what we've done is just taken the cost of attendance at these colleges and subtracted the average merit. And this is now an estimate of what this college could potentially cost you. Again, I would caution you to use this as directional information to help you kind of know what direction to search in. But if you are now interested in Beloit College, because you've narrowed it down, you see that academically it could be, a place where your student could get merit scholarships. Now this, the amount of merit scholarships that they offer and the net cost is maybe closer in your range. Go to that college and do their net price calculator. None of this research should be to replace ever doing the net price calculator on a college's website. I am not going to say that's going to be 100% accurate too, but you should at least do it, keep track of what that number is. Again, it's directional about how much that school might cost. There's now one last thing I will do, because I am definitely over time. But okay, so for Beloit College, you can look at the crowdsourced information for Beloit. And those are the offers that students gave. So in all honesty, I said that there's a free version and a paid version. Only if you are in the paid version and your student is not a high school senior can you see this information. So if you're interested in Beloit, I would now probably look at, let's look at the offers that students shared from last year and the year before. Okay, so now I can see these were different offers. We can even sort this if we want. So from 2 years ago, students were receiving, look, 42,000, 40,000, 42,000. It's pretty clear that, what these students actually received is close and in the ballpark of what the college said that their average was. So this is just kind of interesting confirmation that the college is really giving these offers. They're not just kind of like sharing data that they might not be able to back up. And then you can also see a lot of these students, fair enough, applied test optional and they still got the money. And the students who applied with a test score, a little bit all over the place. I have to actually, I would love to probably confirm with this family here. I don't think that the student really got an 850. So something must have been entered incorrectly. But in general, what's interesting to see here, what this tells me is that the majority of students are applying test optional to Beloit and they're still getting this good money. So they must be using obviously the GPA. And so this gives you a sense of what that GPA is and these students are still getting money. So I definitely went over, let me just see. Oh, so somebody's asking how much is this for year? This is actually, you can either get it as a monthly subscription or an annual subscription. The monthly, the lowest level of the monthly is $24.99 a month. You can cancel it at any point. The benefit of the annual subscription is we have three levels in general. The annual subscription at the lowest level is, we obviously just give you a break on what the monthly rate would be. So if you are, here, let me put this to annual. If you're buying the annual, it ends up to really be $19.99 a month as opposed to $24.99 a month. If you are taking these other plans, what we call a plus plan or the premium plan, and have to, again, I'm being honest, most people either take the essential, which is the lowest level, or they take the premium. We're actually even thinking of eliminating this plus because we don't really get many people in the middle. But the benefit of the premium plan is you are invited. We have monthly webinars with myself, with a college financial planner, with a former dean of admissions, who's amazing. And every month we do a few different topics, and it's honestly a smaller group of people who show up. One of us, is presenting on a topic, more detailed topic. It could be about what's demonstrated interest. It could be about the best way to research colleges. It could be that, we go into even more detail about how your SAI is calculated. So they're definitely more detailed topics, and you get to ask whatever questions you want there. So it's a little bit more personal journey of us teaching you about the process, and then your chance to ask questions. The other thing about these higher plans, and usually parents with juniors and seniors are most interested in it, is that we also give you a discount on if you want to do any one-on-one services with us. So, and the types of one-on-one services we have, just so you know, we are not a company who, has these like expensive plans. That has never been our mission. The mission has always honestly been to support the DIY family, the family who wants to do work and is going to do a lot more work about the journey and about admissions, and then sometimes runs into roadblocks and sometimes needs extra help. So these are different services that we have. You can, if you just want to talk about, admissions and make sure that you're handling it right, you can just do that. I'll tell you, our most popular package is this time of year. It's called the Common App coaching, where we work with your student, making sure that their Common App is filled out as best as possible. And then the other biggest one is something called a Review and Polish, which people are really signing up for a lot this time of year. And honestly, particularly, and I'm not denying it, that probably this year more than any, we saw a lot of families using AI to help their student with the essay process. I hope AI didn't write it, but they might have helped them come up with ideas. And they are getting a little nervous, which I think they should, that nobody has looked at the student's essay before it's submitted. And so that's really what this Review and Polish is, that we have our editors look, like kind of do like one, not one, but a quick look, at your student's essay. A third, party objective professional writer and college counselor will look at it and give feedback. And so that's actually become really popular this season. And I think it's because a lot of people used AI and then they're getting nervous that they haven't had somebody look at it. But anyhow, so these are different services we have. One last thing, sorry, is depending on the membership level that you choose, we have this library of not all, but a lot of our webinars that are just for premium members. And so you would get access to all of these webinars to look at. And there also are some tip sheets and some calculators that are in here too. Let's see. So anyhow, that's everything. That's how, oh, you also get access to an SAT, ACT, online, um, practice, program that we have with one of our partners. There's information here about loans if you want to learn about that earlier. You know, what's the best way to make use of the campus visit? What do you look for on tours? How do you do the research? How can you afford to pay for college? So lots of different videos and webinars here. Okay, is crowdsourcing showing which college students got merit? Yes. So that's the purpose of the crowdsourcing. They are both, it shows which students got need-based aid, if they, you know, and also which students got merit, and it shows their profile information. Most net costs on that tab are higher than the cap loan amount. Does that mean that the net amount after loans will be either coming from out-of-pocket payments from parents or, yes, or from private student loans? It's a really good question. This is why I'm emphasizing understanding what the private loan, or not private, what the loan caps are this year, because this, I think it's Vanessa, is making a very good observation that the net costs on a lot of the colleges that I showed were higher than the amount of money that you can borrow from the government. So if you can't borrow it from the government, there's only one other source, and that's borrowing it from a private lender. I think that there will be more private lenders this summer than there are in the past lending money, but I can't tell you what those rates are going to be. So rates, I think it could go in either direction. I think some rates might be more competitive. I think for the credit-worthy family, the rates will be more competitive because there will be more lenders who want that better credit-worthy family. For the family that's credit is not as strong, I don't think the rates will be as competitive. And so you're going to be stuck. And I don't, you know, I hate saying that, but if you don't plan properly, plan in both the college choice that your student is going to apply to and understanding what your budget is and what your finances are, you might be in a situation where you're going to be capped as to what you can borrow from the government, and you might not have enough choices from where your student got accepted where your budget's going to cover the amount, and then your only other source is going to have to go to a private lender, and we don't know what those rates are going to be. So that's why I am emphasizing people understanding this now and doing your research. Okay, I have to run. I'm so sorry. I've gone a half an hour longer than I should have, but I will look at these questions and see if I can answer any in a follow-up email. We will send out an email definitely to the link of this recording, and reach out, you know, with questions. We try and answer as many as we can, and good luck. I am encouraging everybody to start early. Okay, see you soon. Bye.